The members present, I declare the motion passed. Ozone Layer Protection Amendment Bill 2024.
Members' motion with no legislative effect. Mr. Lai Tung-kwok's motion on enhancing the handling of non-refoulement claims. 3 members will move amendments to the motion. This council will proceed to a joint debate on the motion and the amendments. Later, I will first call upon Mr. Lai Tung-kwok to speak and move the motion. Then I will call upon Mr. Gary Chen, Dr. Simon Lee, and Mr. Bill Tang to speak in sequence, but they may not move the amendments at this stage. The joint debate now begins. Members who wish to speak, please press the Request to Speak button. And now call upon Mr. Lai Tung-kwok to speak and move the motion. Mr. Lai Tung-kwok. President, I move that the motion as printed on the agenda be passed. The problem of non-refoulement claims has long plagued Hong Kong, and that has implications for law and order and our court's workload. Now, we have a backlog of cases because many such claimants apply for leave for judicial review. And there are hundreds of cases involving such claimants in criminal cases every year. And every year we spend roughly, in fact, more than $1 billion on these people, rents, legal aid, and also resources for appeals on those applications. And that's a large sum. Under the current scheme, even when these claims are substantiated, these people will not become permanent residents. Why are there so many claimants here? The reason is financial. Those people, those claimants with a going out pass can roam free, they can work, and we have to stick to a high standard of fairness as the government. There's an independent appeal board and there's judicial review as another avenue, and claimants can file subsequent claims. Cases pile up because some cases take more than 10 years to process. So we keep getting newcomers, and then the old ones are still here. So the number of claimants in Hong Kong snowballs, as at the end of September 2024, there were more than 14,900 claimants here. And for those in judicial review proceedings, 8,200 claimants. 2.5 years later, the latest number of claimants stranded stood at 15,800 claimants, and for those with claims waiting for judicial review, their total reaches more than 8,600. The number of stranded claimants here itself should be a warning sign. But we are here after massive efforts to intercept claimants at source and clamping down on illegal workers. At the end of 2022, the government updated its removal policy. As long as their application for leave for judicial review is rejected, even if there are outstanding proceedings, the Immigration Department can remove the claimant. Last year, we removed 2,200 claimants. Even with the higher number of removals, the number of claimants stranded in Hong Kong keeps increasing. The SCR government has done much to enhance the non-refoulement process. We are no longer getting more than 10,000 cases in the backlog. Now it takes 10 weeks to process claims, and the appeal panel can handle a case in 4 months' time. But what about judicial review? Still, we have a backlog of 8,600 claimants. We know where the holdup is. So for the government, it should launch targeted measures to turn things around. And what we should do is to remove the incentive for coming here for non-refoulement claims. The figures show us most claims are unjustified. I've done my math. Over the years, unsubstantiated claims made up 98.9% of all claims, and that's a staggering level. Many claimants came here for the going out passes and became illegal workers. They want to make money. So here are the ideas I want to suggest. 1, let's approach the application for leave for JR with new thinking. Let's learn from the UK. Let's set up a dedicated court just for those JR applications from these claimants. The UK's mechanism is similar to ours. But there's a distinction. In the UK, the Home Office looks at the application and then they have an appeal tribunal. So they hear the application de novo. If the applicant remains aggrieved, the claimant will no longer be able to file an application for judicial review with the High Court. Instead, the claimant in the UK will have to file the appeal with an upper tribunal. And the appeal is restricted to points of law and traditional grounds of JR. And before that, the claimant will have to get a court approval before doing so. Over here in Hong Kong, it's common to see that a claimant is not happy with the ruling, and our appeal tribunal does not hear the case de novo. Our High Court judges dealing with JR cases are far from enough. A large amount of documents are involved for each case, and those documents are disorganized, and the applicants simply fill out the forms without giving the justifications. And even for those who do cite the reason, those people simply say they don't like the decision, they cite dangers to their life, they say they're unlitigated, unrepresented, they cite language barriers, and they give you sloppy reasons for filing the application, vague grounds, and untenable. The judges have to go through the document, and at the request of the applicant, the judges have to fix a date. And even then, the applicants do not file a skeleton of their oral submissions, and some applicants simply do not bother to show up. And the judges have to spell out the entire proceeding in the ruling, and that takes a lot of time. And I'm not exaggerating. This is commonplace. I just looked up a recent ruling. The ruling sets out exactly what I've said. But let's look at the UK. Let's learn from them. Let's set up a dedicated court for non-refoulement claims. Let's set up this upper tier tribunal. We put a dedicated judge there to decide whether to grant leave. Let's streamline the procedure. We set a fixed timeline, and we only deal with points of law. We do not go over the facts again. On oral hearing, leave it to the judge. Based on the fact, give the judge discretion. If the appeal is rejected, then the government can remove the applicant, and we can disregard any outstanding proceeding. That does not deprive any of the claimant's right. What that can do is to save time that would otherwise be wasted senselessly. Now, for uncooperative claimants who do not obtain their travel documents, let's take administrative measures. When these claimants' cases are being looked at, the Immigration Department make these applicants provide the information. So when the claim is rejected, the Immigration Department can talk to the Consul General and get the paperwork done right away. 3, we need more decisive action. For all claims and applications for JR, let's set a deadline for people whose applications are rejected. And when these people refuse repatriation by a certain date, we cut off all cash allowances. And for people likely or very likely to create safety risks, we should invoke Section 37ZK of the Immigration Ordinance, meaning we detain them. The topic today is important and complex. I'm tossing around some of my thoughts to get this conversation started. So let's brainstorm some ideas to deal with this long-standing, thorny, and difficult problem. I will be listening to member speeches and give a response.
Hi.
I now put the question to you that Mr. LAI Tung-kwok's motion be passed. Mr. Gary Chang. Thank you, Deputy President. Since the unified screening mechanism was implemented in 2021, the mechanism for protecting a very small number of torture claimants have been abused by non-refoulement claimants for staying in Hong Kong illegally to work. We are already at the breaking seams. Years after years, we have been spending billions of dollars to support these non-refoulement claimants. My office often receives complaints that these non-refoulement claimants are doing illegal things, they are sleeping on the streets, and they are fighting on the streets. Now, between January and November 2024, 600 non-refoulement claimants with Form 8 were arrested, accounting for 2% of the total number of arrested persons. That means for every 100 arrested persons, 2 of them are reconnaissance form holders. The situation is bad. There are still 15,800 non-refoulement claimants stranded in Hong Kong. And we don't see any possibility to repatriate them in the short term. The public money spent on them is on the billions. It is an extremely huge burden on our financial position. Over the past 10 years, the Security Bureau and the government has been doing their best to arrest the problem. For example, intercepting the claimants at source, combating illegal employment, and processing the backlog cases as soon as possible. But the crux of the issue lies in the situation where it is very difficult to repatriate the non-refoulement claimants, like Mr. LAI Tung-kwok said. Claimants whose applications are pending are stranded in Hong Kong and take up illegal employment. Now, once their applications were rejected, they would immediately apply for leave for judicial review. It comes at no cost to them. By filling in a form, they can continue to remain in Hong Kong and continue to work illegally with the Form 8. Now, there are 8,000 similar cases pent up. Even when the application for leave for JR is rejected, they can still file an appeal and remain in Hong Kong for another period of time. It is very common to see non-refoulement claimants staying in Hong Kong for 3 to 5 to even 10 years. They are entitled to the $3,000 subsidies per month. If they are bold enough, they would take up illegal employment or join a triad to earn big money. Now, before repatriation, even if they are repatriated to their origin country, they will become rich. So it is to no cost to them at all. So since the repatriation policy was updated in 2022, the court can immediately start repatriating those who have their appeal for leave rejected. But that does not apply to claimants whose application for leave for judicial review is pending. So there is still abuse of the JR system. The government should streamline the JR procedure to shorten the duration of time that the 15,000 non-refoulement claimants are staying in Hong Kong. More importantly, we need to remove the financial incentives for the claimants. That is, we need to combat illegal employment more strenuously. We need to put all these non-refoulement claimants in detention facilities to keep them away from the community. This is how we can address the issue at the core. Thank you. Dr. Hoey Simon Lee. Deputy President, I speak in support of Ms. LAI Tung-kwok for his motion and also the amendments. Now, the non-refoulement claim mechanism in Hong Kong is for taking up our international humanitarian responsibility. But since 2014, we have seen a huge upsurge in number of claimants after the USM was implemented. Now, between 2018 and 2024, the number of claimants has increased by 16%. In 2023, November, me and my team published a report on the situation of non-refoulement claimants. They are mainly from Vietnam, Indonesia, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, and the Philippines. They are not from war-torn countries. These are just poorer neighbors of ours. Now, compared with the report and also the more common origin countries of claimants, that is Syria and other war-torn countries, published by the UN, this is very different. And also the substantiated rate was just 70%. Now, compared with the 70% acceptance rate back in the Vietnamese refugees era, it shows that there is a huge abuse of the system right now. Now, I fully support that we need to streamline the repatriation process. The crux of the issue is the upsurge in new cases. Now, despite streamlining our administrative procedure, and also the number of repatriation has increased from 1,100 to 2,200 last year, the number of new cases has also increased from 1,220 to 2,800 in 2024. As a result, the number of claimants stranded in Hong Kong continue to rise. Now, without reforming the system, we can't address the issue as cause. Now, for former foreign domestic workers, applications from this group accounted for 21.8% in 2024. The situation is abnormal. The major source countries of our foreign domestic helpers are Indonesia and the Philippines. For these two places, the political situations are relatively stable. Why the foreign domestic helpers from these countries would file a torture claim after the cessation of the contracts? They can at most stay for 2 weeks after the termination of contracts. However, by filing this claim, they can stay in Hong Kong and also they can get the $3,000 humanitarian aid from the government. Now, some former foreign domestic helpers engaged in illegal employment and they could get a monthly salary of $9,600 plus the $3,000 subsidy from the government. They can earn as much as $12,600 per month, much higher than the average salary of $5,000 for foreign domestic helpers. Now, the government has been combating illegal employment and enhancing the penalty level. However, enforcement is difficult. That's why I urge the government to regularly review the source countries of non-refoulement claimants and take actions to combat suspected abuse. Now, we do have similar measures on certain countries, and we have seen great results. We have curbed the increase in non-refoulement claim at source. Now, for groups which file a torture claim after years of employment in Hong Kong, we can also impose restrictions. For example, we can specify that non-refoulement claims must be filed 1 year after arrival in Hong Kong unless there are sufficient grounds. Otherwise, applications of time will not be entertained. This will not only combat abuse, but also allow the government to focus its resources to address cases which really need help. Now, my amendment is in agreement with the original motion. Thank you. Mr. Bill Tang. Thank you, Deputy President. My predecessors, especially Ms. LAI Tung-kwok, I agree with all of their views. Now, in European countries, there are a lot of refugees, but they are mostly from North Africa, Syria, and Ukraine. For our torture claimants, they came from India, which ranked the 5th in terms of GDP, and Indonesia, ranking 8th in terms of GDP in the world, and also Vietnam, which is a rising manufacturing powerhouse. I just can't believe that people are tortured in these countries with relatively stable political environments. So I agree with the previous analysis. We need to curb the influx of non-refoulement claimants at source. Now, however, I have reservation on the last point made by Ms. LAI Tung-kwok. For those who have been convicted, according to the Immigration Department or Immigration Ordinance, they can be detained. Well, I would think they should be repatriated immediately. This is the Western standard, who pride themselves on their humanitarianism. I hope the Security Bureau would study an amendment to repatriate immediately those non-refoulement claimants who have been convicted of criminal offenses. There are cases in other countries which supported my suggestion. Now, in 2007, the UK has legislated for a law of auto-repatriation. Now, for offenders sentenced to 12 months of imprisonment or above, the repatriation process would be initiated immediately. Now, according to the U.S. immigration law, for convicted felonies, including rape, drug trafficking, violence crimes, and fraud, no matter how long the imprisonment term is, they will be repatriated. Canada, they are a famous country for receiving refugees. According to the Immigration and Refugee Protection Law, for felon sentenced to 6 months or above, the repatriation process will begin. Germany, for those who has been a threat to public security, they would be repatriated immediately. Australia, according to Section 501 of the immigration law, there is a character test. According to the test, those who have been sentenced to 12 months or above, including suspended sentence, would be repatriated to their home country. Now, of course, the claimant can file an appeal, but they would still be repatriated first while their appeal is pending. Now, there are exceptional cases. For example, refugees from Syria. It is a war-torn country and they would be in danger. For those from India, Indonesia, Vietnam, and Pakistan, they are not rich countries, but they are not countries at war. I have raised this question at various occasions. Germany, a famous country for being lenient with refugees, they have repatriated convicts from war-torn countries. So for bogus refugees, why can't we adopt similar measures? Now, once convicted, they will be sent home. This sends a clear message: don't take up illegal employment here. We have a zero-tolerance approach. This is a criminal offense. No matter what the sentence is, you will be repatriated. Now, my amendment also suggests enhancing intelligence collection and also stopping one-stop illegal acts such as bringing in potential claimants and committing maintenance. It is difficult for us to imagine that the claimants are so well-versed with the procedures, despite claiming that they don't understand our language. There must be someone behind pulling the strings. So the Security Bureau must be dedicated to crack down these syndicates. Thank you.
Secretary for Security. Madam Deputy, I thank Mr. LAI Tung-kwok for the motion and 3 members for the amendments to allow views and suggestions on this motion on enhancing the handling of non-refoulement claims. The government is very concerned about the abuse of the non-refoulement claim mechanism. As an international city that respects the rule of law and exercises law-based governance, we must meet the legal requirements, including high standards of fairness laid down by the Court of Final Appeal, and take into account the legality and reasonableness of the policy as we handle these claims. Over the years, the government has been taking a very serious view and actively responding to the issue of great concern of the community. We have also adopted a multi-pronged strategy to process non-refoulement claims efficiently and expedite the removal of unsubstantiated claimants. Our efforts can be summarized into 5 prongs: interception at source, vigorous enforcement, efficient vetting, lawful detention, and effective removal. I will give a brief account of the government's recent progress in these areas. First, interception at source. Interception at source is the first line of defense against abuse of non-refoulement mechanism. The government has set up a task force with the counterparts in the mainland and Macau to provide high-level steer on the matter of intercepting illegal immigrants. And we have also strengthened joint enforcement actions with significant results. The number of non-ethnic Chinese or NEC illegal immigrants IIs intercepted has plummeted by 84% from the peak in October 2023 to a monthly average of 60 in 2024. The government will continue to enhance tripartite intelligence exchange to combat illegal immigration in a more precise manner. Apart from illegal immigration, to prevent potential abuses of the mechanism from boarding flights for Hong Kong, the government has since September 2024 launched the Advanced Passenger Information System in phases. In just a few months, the system has successfully identified and rejected ineligible persons from boarding the flight, including those whose non-refoulement claims have been rejected and those who have been repatriated. The API system has successfully pushed the first line of defense to outside Hong Kong. Vigorous enforcement. We know that many abuses of the mechanism lodge claims in order to take up illegal employment in Hong Kong. The government must eliminate the financial incentive for them and take a vigorous approach in tackling illegal employment and the employment of illegal workers. The Immigration Department will continue to take enforcement action. In 2024, the Immigration Department inspected 13,306 target premises, an increase of 254 comparing to the figure in 2023. 444 NEC illegal workers and 146 employers were arrested. Third prong, efficient vetting. To clear the backlog of cases and minimize the burden on society, the Immigration Department and the Torture Claims Appeal Board, or TCAP, have enhanced the efficiency of the screening and appeal process through flexible staff deployment and optimized workflow. The Immigration Department has been effective in reducing the processing time for claims. It has substantially shortened by 60% from 25 weeks to 10 weeks on average. In the first quarter of 2024, the Torture Claims Appeals Board has also streamlined this process, and the average time for processing an appeal case has now been reduced from over 7 months in the past to just about 4 months. Meanwhile, the judiciary has adopted a number of measures to ensure that non-refoulement claims and the related cases can be dealt with as soon as reasonably practicable. These measures include increasing manpower and streamlining procedures to enhance efficiency. In the beginning of 2025, the judiciary also appointed additional legal professionals as deputy judges of the Court of First Instance non-refoulement claim so as to clear the backlog as quickly as possible. Number 4, lawful detention. The government has strived to increase detention places to detain claimants who pose a greater risk to public safety. In 2023, the Security Bureau amended the legislation to include NACO Correctional Institution as a place of detention to increase the total number of detention places by 33% from 660 to 900. Just yesterday, that is the 1st of April, NACO Correctional Institution completed an in situ expansion such that detention places increased by 70% in number, up to 40. And to enhance the discipline and order in correctional institutions, the government implemented a number of legislative amendments in November 2023 in relation to the treatment of detainees, including more comprehensive disciplinary offenses and increased penalties. Finally, effective removal. After reviewing the relevant policies, the government implemented an updated removal policy in December 2022, under which unsubstantiated claimants are removed immediately after the judicial review or leave for JR applications have been rejected by the Court of First Instance, without having to wait for another appeal by the claimants to the Court of Appeal. The updated removal policy is very effective. In 2024, the Immigration Department removed 2,219 unsubstantiated claimants from Hong Kong, up by 24% comparing to the previous year. The Immigration Department will continue to uphold the updated policy and will continue to keep in close liaison with the consulate generals of the claimant source countries to verify their identities more expeditiously. The Bureau will continue to speed up the processing of the non-refoulement claims to reduce the time and to cut expenses. We understand the concerns from members here and the community. We've been exchanging views with members on this topic, and I will carefully listen to members' views in today's debate and respond to them at the end. Thank you.
Professor Chow Min-kong. Madam Deputy, we know that the Security Bureau and the Immigration Department have launched a number of enhancements to processing non-refoulement claims, and they have also toughened action on bogus refugees. As the motion says, the situation now is we have a large number of these unsubstantiated claimants, and bogus refugees adopt stalling tactics to stay here. They commit offenses here, they also a strain on our public finances, and they are a major hazard for our law and order situation. Our country and the HASAR have to implement this convention against torture and other cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment. Still, bogus refugees have become a structural problem, and they are a strain on our resources, so we have to do something. I support Mr. LAI Tung-kwok's motion. And I want to share my thoughts on how we can approach this. 1. Intercepting at source. Let's make good use of the API system, Advanced Passenger Information System. Let's work with the mainland. We block those bogus refugees at source. Starting from last September, the API system has been in place roughly 6 months ago at the meeting of the panel on security. In the second quarter this year, we will cover all airlines in Hong Kong. Now, at our airport, we have at least 120 airlines. They offer flights connecting Hong Kong with more than 180 destinations. I hope the government can tell us how well this system is working. And we should also be doing the gatekeeping as airlines adopt the system. Now, there are non-Chinese illegal immigrants, so we should talk to the mainland because these illegal immigrants come to Hong Kong through the mainland. So we need intelligence, we need enforcement to prevent them from coming here in the first place. We should also find people who help bogus refugees who come here, and we should clamp down on organized crime to deter these bogus refugees. Those bogus refugees submit the same template applications, there are crime syndicates helping them. Then there are non-organized, non-government organizations, so-called law firms involved, and some bogus refugees take up work illegally. They work as courier workers. That affect the livelihood of local workers, as Mr. Bill Tang said in his amendment. There's coaching, there's maintenance behind these bogus refugees in Hong Kong. We have to get to the root of the problem. Let's clamp down on such organized crime at source. We have to make it more costly for bogus refugees to stay here. And let's also drop the mechanism of subsequent claims under the immigration ordinance so that it doesn't get exploited. Now, for a non-refoulement claimant, when their application is rejected, they can appeal. And when that also fails, the claimant can apply for leave for judicial review from the CFI. And when that also fails, they can lodge a claim with the Court of Appeal, and then they can file a further appeal with the CFA when that also fails. And even then, subsequent claims are another option, and you get into a vicious cycle. The immigration ordinance says claimants of subsequent claims have to meet two conditions. One, a material change in their circumstances, and two, a real prospect of success. Over the past 5 years, there were 2,200 subsequent claims in the past 5 years. Only one such claim was substantiated. So, such claims were simply a way to abuse the process and stall. So, I support Mr. LAI Tung-kwok's motion on exploring ways to amend our laws. The government needs to take a serious look at the option of dropping subsequent claims. Let's fix our institutions so that refugees who don't meet the criteria can be sent away to keep our city safe. I so submit. Dr. Low Kwok. Madam Deputy, I thank Mr. LAI Tung-kwok for his motion and the three members who moved their amendments. Non-refoulement claimants are illegal immigrants who don't want to leave. Whatever their grounds are, they are illegal immigrants. We have the unified screening mechanism that is adopted to deal with such applications. The Immigration Department's data shows as at the end of November 2024, there were 15,782 non-refoulement claimants in Hong Kong. This is a long-standing problem. We need vast amounts of public funds to deal with such applications. From 2014 to 2024, Hong Kong spent an ever-growing amount of money on various aspects, and that amount is close to $10 billion on processing claims, applications, and appeals, and the same amount of money can be used to build 10,000 public rental flats. So given our fiscal position, we need to reduce waste, we need to make good use of our public money. Bogus refugees in Hong Kong also mean law and order problems. Some take up work illegally. Others are recruited by criminal gangs. For years, the BPA has called on the government to take tougher action on bogus refugees in terms of illegal immigration or taking up illegal work. We welcome the attention of the current term government to this problem, and in December 2022, a new removal policy was put in place so that unsubstantiated claimants could no longer stall and they had to leave. On the 3rd of September 2024, the Immigration Department put in place the Advanced Passenger Information System to prevent potential non-refoulement claimants or non-undesirables from boarding a flight to Hong Kong. So let's review these measures in a timely way. The BPA and I agree and support the idea that the government needs to enhance the processes for dealing with non-refoulement applications. Let's look at ways to amend our law. Let's find ways to clear our backlog, and that will serve the best interests of our community. 1. Better use of resources and fast-tracking the processing of these non-refoulement claims will make a difference. Let's set a time limit on assistance given to the claimants, and let's talk to the judiciary about ways to fast-track the processing of those claims, and also plug the loopholes so that our process does not get exploited. We should also adopt artificial intelligence and deploy resources to fast-track the processing of non-refoulement claim applications so that we can send those people away quickly. Let's also improve our law and enforce our law. Many people argue that we should learn from other jurisdictions. Let's amend our legislation. When someone arrives here without a valid visa, they should be confined at a facility. That means all non-refoulement claimants should not receive their going out passes before going through the procedure. This will also take up resources, but that's the best way to prevent them from becoming. That's the best way to take away their financial incentive for coming here, and also they won't be recruited by criminal gangs. Blocking or preventing such claimants from coming here at source is the best way to go, and this means we need to work with law enforcement, and we also have to clamp down on people smuggling gangs, and let's take an all-round approach to stopping those people from coming here. Let's also get the central authorities to help. Now, for major sources of illegal immigrants or non-refoulement claims, let's clamp down on the people smugglers there so that we deal with the problem at source. Dr. Johnny Ng. Hong Kong is an international city. The rule of law has been our strength. And we have this multi-pronged approach to dealing with non-refoulement applications, but we are getting more and more non-refoulement claimants. Many claimants are abusing our system, and they are known as bogus refugees. They are a strain on our resources, and people worry about this problem. Those people make a quick buck here, they take up work illegally, or they commit crimes. So they become robbers or thieves, and they threatened safety of the city. Now, the government has spent more than $10 billion on these people, and we are actually creating this problem because these people are committing crimes. The government has taken measures to deal with the applications and moving faster in removing such claimants. But we are still getting more and more such people. As at the end of 2023, we had more than 14,700 such claimants. They were still here. In the 2023 to 24 financial year, we spent $1.4 billion on dealing with such claimants. I support Mr. LAI Tung-kwok's motion and the amendment. Let's enhance our procedures for dealing with such claimants. Let's amend our law to deal with our backlog so that we can send these people away sooner. We should streamline the administrative procedures to address community concerns about these claimants. There are claimants who clearly fall short of the requirements. Let's have a fast-track process. Let's set clear deadlines. We don't want cases dragging on forever. And for unsubstantiated cases, let's fast-track the processing of those cases so that we reduce waste of judicial resources. Let's make greater use of AI and big data in this vetting of documents. Let's identify the high-risk cases. Let's also review the system where a claimant can choose their own lawyer. Instead, we should get the legal assistance legal aid department to appoint lawyers for these people, and let's set clear limits. We can adopt a market-oriented model. Let's fast-track the processes and achieve a deterrent effect. Now, but fast-tracking the process will only be a band-aid. As we enhance our current process, we should also be clear about the route, and that has to do with the Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman, or Degrading Treatment or Punishment. That convention seeks to protect human rights, but that convention has been exploited by bogus refugees. The global landscape is constantly changing. Let's look at other places. Those places are amending their own laws and policies. So for us, where needed, we should talk to the central authorities about exemption from this convention. Can we apply the convention to Hong Kong so that bogus refugees will no longer be a drain on our resources and pose a danger to our city? Years ago, there was a question about whether we can do something about this, but the government said we could do this if needed. Now, we have a high degree of autonomy under one country, two systems. When it comes to international conventions, we have to work through our country. So let's talk to the central authorities. Can we apply for exemption from following the non-refoulement claim clauses under the convention? And for us, let's also create a localized system to protect those who do deserve it. That's to root out abuse. We should not let this problem of bogus refugees fester and become a drain on resources. Hong Kong has already fulfilled its moral obligation over the years, and we have to draw a line somewhere. I so submit.
Mr. Dominic Lee, Deputy President. Bogus refugees has been a major problem in Hong Kong. We introduced the unified screening mechanism in 2014. As of last year, the government already received over 27,000 non-refoulement claims. Only 350 plus claims eventually become substantiated. That's less than 1%. That means for the rest of these claimants, they are bogus refugees. Now, we process the claims, we help with the appeals, we provide legal aid, and we spend $1 billion a year. And over the past 10 years, we've spent more than $10 billion on bogus refugees. The money should be spent on our society instead. Apart from draining our public resources, bogus refugees pose a major threat to law and order in Hong Kong. Over the years, we've recorded over 5,000 cases of crimes, including murder, rape, arson, robbery, etc. Why are we tolerating this? So that bogus refugees would continue to eat into our law and order. In fact, over the years, with the efforts made by various departments in the government, we have expedited the whole process. But at the moment, 1,800 cases remain. Last year, 2,140 claims were made. That the figure exceeded the number of substantiated claimants removed. We shouldn't allow them to abuse the system so that with a stalling tactic they could stay here and harm our society. The government should consider raising the threshold for leave for JR applications to stop bogus refugees from playing the delaying tactic. Some bogus refugees have been sent to jail, but once they are released, they take up illegal employment or they commit crimes again. We should consider whether time is ripe for us not to take them under our shelter anymore. In fact, according to the Operation Border Act, this country expeditiously repatriates a lot of bogus refugees. They also set up closed camps so as to put a stop to the abuse and stop them from taking up illegal employment. Why should we tolerate them? President, well, Dr. Fernando Zhang the ex-lawmaker was the father of bogus refugees. He claimed that bogus refugee, in fact, did not exist in great number, and for the sake of human rights, we should protect them. I can't help but rebut this argument. What about the victims of rape because of bogus refugees and the bereaved families because of crimes such as murder? Who should look after the welfare of Hong Kong people? I really hope that the government will take our suggestion on board, that is to raise the threshold for judicial reviews, expedite the procedures of removal. Closed camps should be set up to stop them from coming at source. We should remove the incentive so that Hong Kong people's rights can be safeguarded. I so submit. Dr. Teck Chi-yuen. President, Mr. LAI Tung-kwok has moved the motion on enhancing the handling of non-refoulement claims. I support the original motion, but I'm going to abstain from voting on the amendments. Hong Kong is a party to the UN Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman and Degrading Treatment and Punishment, as well as the Bill of Rights. We need to adopt high standards of fairness in vetting every claim. For example, there should be detailed investigation into the testimonies of the claimant. We should also consider the specific details of the torture or inhuman treatment so claimed. We need to consider the social situation of the source countries. That may cause a delay in the vetting process. Now, there are three major reasons posing hiccups. For example, claimants are often unable to provide sufficient document to support their claim. And second, we have limited manpower resources in the Immigration Department and the judiciary. The third reason is that we have a surge of non-refoulement claims. In the first 11 months of 2024, we received 2,646 claims. That far exceeds the capacity of the Immigration Department's establishment. In fact, the substantiation rate of claims in Hong Kong is less than 1%, is far below the UNHCR's average 27%. The difference can be accounted for the following reasons. We consider only the aspect of torture and cruel, inhuman, degrading treatments. We do not consider in detail whether the social and political environment of the source country would pose a threat to the life of the claimant. And we also do not have any mechanism to track the well-being of these persons repatriated to the source country. We don't know whether they truly face any threats. Unlike Canada and some of the European countries, they have a tracking mechanism. On a regular basis, they do take random inspection. I think this goes against the humanitarian spirit. I think it's not appropriate to label each and every torture claimant as bogus refugee, because by sticking this label onto them, we are disregarding some possible risks that they face. These claims are unsubstantiated very often because of insufficient evidence. They are not the fraudsters. They may have left the country because of sexual violence or religious reasons. So I support the motion, but I want the government to consider the humanitarian aspect whilst striving to clear backlogged cases and shorten the processing time. We also need to make sure that we meet international humanitarian standards. We should not just expedite the processing of cases and compromise the safety of legitimate claimants. We need to abide by the higher standards of fairness. My second suggestion is that we should enhance administrative efficiency. There should be more manpower. We should leverage on technology to vet documents and applications. A dedicated team should also be set up within the government so that more focused approach can be taken in processing the claims to avoid the claimants from overstaying. The third suggestion is to enhance collaboration with the global community to promote information sharing. We should work with the source countries, governments, and the relevant organizations. The fourth suggestion is about social allocation. We need to make sure that the removal policy or the non-refoulement claim policy will not drain social resources and affect local residents. This is not just about an individual's rights. It also affects our international image. We need to abide by the humanitarian spirit and make sure that all cases are handled with high standards of fairness. Mr. Ambrose Lam. I speak in support of Mr. Lai Tung-kwok's motion and other amendments. Now, the basis of the non-refoulement claim mechanism in Hong Kong is the United Nations Convention on Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman, Degrading Treatment and Punishment. According to Article 3 of the UN Convention, as well as case laws in Hong Kong, we must adopt high standards of fairness in vetting each claim independently. Sufficient aid or appropriate aid should be provided to claimants, such as living allowance and legal aid. In reality, it is quite difficult for claimants to show proof that they are subject to torture. 175 countries have signed up for the UN Convention against torture and other cruel, inhuman, degrading treatment against punishment. Only 20 First of all, torture should be criminalized, but only 22 countries have not implemented this article. According to Immigration Department, 15,000 out of the 15,000 claimants, 80% of them come from countries covered by the UN Convention. And in subsection 2 of Article 3 of the UN Convention, there should be proof that there is substantial infringement of human rights. And in fact, a few years ago, I came across a number of such cases, and miraculously, the claimants all put up the same reasons for lodging the claim. So I very much agree with other members, such as Dr. Hoey and Mr. Bill Tang, that this mechanism has been abused by syndicates. We need to step up intelligence gathering. We also need to step up our effort in combating illegal syndicates. And we also need to tackle issues such as maintenance. Now, I understand that there are calls for us to observe the humanitarian spirit. But I think that this is not justified, because in Australia, they also have a camp in Papua New Guinea. Well, in Hong Kong, we can follow suit. We have a lot of outlying islands in Hong Kong. We can build some detention camps on one of these islands and send the claimants there. Now, these claimants now receive $1,500 as housing allowance and $1,200 a month for food. And since they are not allowed to take up work properly, the amount of aid could not help them make ends meet, and as a result, they take up illegal employment. Sending them to a detention camp will make sure that they get fed and they have a roof under the shelter, a roof over their head, and it's a lawful detention, and it keeps them safe. At the same time, it also provides deterrence for potential claimants, so that they understand that there is no merit in coming over to Hong Kong. There should also be more judges appointed to deal with such claims. there is a backlog of 15,000 at the moment. If we run out of judges, we can appoint more as deputy judges. I understand that many lawyers are willing to sit as deputy judges. So if the judiciary runs out of space, you can rent offices. We have a lot of grade 8 offices available. We can have 100 judges working on the 15,000 cases 10 hours a day. And definitely the expenses I propose will be far less than the expenditure on aid given to refugees. And that is why I support the original motion and all the amendments.
Ms. Young. President, I speak in support of Mr. LAI Tung-kwok's motion on enhancing the handling of non-refoulement claims. As a rule-based society, we need to abide by our international obligations. However, we are seeing more and more abuse of the system. More and more unsubstantiated claimants are stranded in Hong Kong. We are spending billions of dollars per year to maintain the system, and there are security risks pertaining to the stranded claimants. As mentioned by Mr. LAI Tung-kwok, the abuse is apparent. Foreign domestic helpers who stayed in Hong Kong after the contract ends, they would file a claim. Thus, they are being tortured in their home country. Most of them are doing so for personal reasons. They are indebted, and they claim that their life would be threatened at home. I declare interest. I am a duty lawyer to handle non-refoulement claims since 2014. It is the truth. Most cases like this. So whether there are abuses is not up to debate. The ratio of cases substantiated is lower than 2%. It is extremely low. So there is actually abuse of the system. We need to streamline the procedure. Many members have quoted these statistics. From 2014 till now, there are still more than 15,000 claimants stranded in Hong Kong. The bottleneck is at the judiciary and judicial review. So that's where we are focused on. We need to speed up the procedures for judicial review. True, there were very few cases which were successfully reviewed, but they accounted for less than 1% of the number. Now, JR has become the major tool for delaying tactics. Now, 30% of the cases require 12 to 18 months to have a court appearance. For some cases, it is as long as 3 years. More than 8,000 cases now pending review, lengthening the period stranded in Hong Kong to 10 years. Now, 90% of the judicial review applications are rejected. But it seems that we are doing nothing to discourage abuse. Now, in last year, there were 630 permit holders arrested for drug trafficking and violence cases. The claimants holding the reconnaissance form cannot work legally. So when life became difficult for them, they would turn to crime. So there is a very high likelihood, or dare I say, the majority of them are inclined to become lawbreakers. So that's why we describe them as abusers of the systems and bogus refugees. Now, there are a lot of strategies adopted by the government, for example, expansion of detention facilities and curbing the influx at source. Now, the judiciary has recruited lawyers and judges to handle non-refoulement cases. But the manpower is limited. So we need to enhance this system to break this bottleneck. We need to compress the entire procedure. Like Mr. LAI Tung-kwok said, we need a dedicated court. And we need screening to screen out those obviously unjustified claims, we don't even need to convene a court hearing for them. After reading the documents, the judges can decide that there is simply no chance for these claimants to be granted asylum. And also, I urge the government to consider whether electronic bracelets can be used to trace the whereabouts of the claimants, to trace their whereabouts and whether they are taking up illegal employment. Please stop speaking. Mr. Chan Hak-kan. Thank you, President. I speak in support of Mr. LAI Tung-kwok's motion. Now, the Convention Against Torture and Other Cruelty was implemented in Hong Kong since 1992. Now, if a refugee claims that they are subject to torture at home, a receiving country cannot send them back to their home country. Now, according to the immigration policy, Hong Kong will not confirm any torture claimant as refugee. So the government will offer financial support for these claimants. Now, since the USM was implemented in 2021, 2014, only 1.3% of the cases were substantiated. The majority of the claims were not substantiated. Now, there were lots of non-ethnic Chinese illegal immigrants applying for torture claims in Hong Kong. That causes the upsurge in number. There are signs showing that many foreign domestic helpers had their contracts terminated prematurely and applied for torture claims so as to enjoy the government subsidy or even take up illegal employments in Hong Kong. The abuse of the system by bogus refugees has exacerbated. More and more of them are stranded in Hong Kong. According to the Immigration Department, as of November 2024, there were 15,000 of such claimants in Hong Kong. 8,000 of these cases have their cases rejected by the appeal board but are still filing for judicial review. There are 1,900 claimants detained pending prosecution or other legal procedures. 3,500 claimants are now being arranged to be sent back to their home country. Many bogus refugees are engaging in illegal activities in Hong Kong. It costs the government a lot of money. According to the Security Bureau, over the past 4 years, the Hong Kong SAR government has spent a lot of money on vetting the application, appeal, repatriation, and legal aid and humanitarian subsidy. We spent more than $1 billion on them yearly. Now, in 2024, the working budget was $1.15 billion. Now, with our fiscal position, we are still spending more than $1 billion on handling non-refoulement claimants. We really need to review the system. Besides financial pressure, security is also worrying. According to the police force, as at November 2024, 713 non-refoulement claimants were arrested for criminal offences. 273 of them were involved in theft and burglary offences. 60 were charged for serious drug trafficking offences. 68 were prosecuted for wounding and batteries. Many of them were involved in drug offences and theft and violence offences when they are in Hong Kong. The risk they bring to our security is substantial. Now, over the years, the government has adopted a multi-pronged approach to address the issue of non-refoulement claims. The government has been curbing the influx of non-refoulement claimants at source and speed up the repatriation process for unsubstantiated claimants. However, the number still rises. Some claimants are abusing the system by applying for judicial review. Even when their application for leave is rejected, they still apply for habeas corpus order and continue to stay in Hong Kong. It adds to security risk. From a public resources point of view, despite the government's efforts in enhancing efficiency, including studying legislative amendments to streamline the application process and speed up the repatriation process to clear the backlog cases, the results are still limited. Now, the government said that by the fourth quarter this year, all airline companies will be mandated to use the advanced passenger information system. All flights will have to report the passengers' information before they depart for Hong Kong. Now, with that system, we can curb the influx of bogus refugees. We need to collaborate with mainland authorities to curb the influx of illegal immigrants from the mainland as well. Thank you. Professor Priscilla Leung. President, the so-called bogus refugee issue arises from us being a party to Article 3 of the Convention Against Torture and Other Cruelty, Inhuman or Degrading Treatment or Punishment of the UN. Now, when someone claims to be subject to torture or inhuman treatment in their home country, we can't repatriate them. Now, in my constituency, we have the Chongqing building. Many property owners of the building have sought help from me. At the time, the situation was not as serious, but starting from 2014, there was a famous case that is Ghulam Ramli. Now, in that case, the how do you think principle was established. Now, under that principle, if the immigration department cannot complete the application process or vetting the application process in a reasonable time, the immigration department cannot detain the claimants for a period that is unreasonable. Now, then the situation was exacerbated. I visited the Guangdong province's public security department and also the office of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Hong Kong on whether Hong Kong needs to comply with Article 3 of the UN Convention. I went to the Pak Shek Detention Center at Ma On Shan. At the time, I was a district council member. Sham Shui Po and Guilem Lam Street, these are the black spots. My constituents, Hong Ham and Chim Sa Tsui, were also the black spots. Interestingly, those who sought help from me were community leaders of ethnic minorities. They understood the culture of the bogus refugees, so the bogus refugees targeted the ethnic minority community when they committed crimes. Now, in India, there are advertisements telling the potential torture claimants that how much they can earn by taking up illegal employment in Hong Kong. Now, I know the government has spent much effort in combating the issue. Now, 9 years ago, Mr. LAI Tung-kwok was still the Secretary for Security. The incumbent chief executive or Mr. John Lee, the then Secretary for Security, have also helped a lot in terms of enhancing the legislation. But there are still incentives, and also there is a huge backlog. This is really a pain for us. It's not just we are encouraging more torture claimants to come. It is very hard on the families as well. The children are not entitled to education in Hong Kong. They can't live a normal life. So we need to repatriate them. That's the humane way to deal with the issue. I support increasing manpower in the judiciary. We can hire more deputy judges to process the claims as soon as possible. Now, we did criticize the judiciary because the presidencies were straitjackets for the government. Now, even Geoffrey Ma, the then Chief Justice, sought help from the government. Even civil court judges were assigned to non-refoulement claims. Now, in the legal sector, we always say that justice delayed is justice denied. There is already insufficient manpower in court, but there are still some 8,000 JR cases pending. We are a rule of law society. We need to increase manpower in courts to deal with these cases. Now, I've talked to the ethnic minority communities. They support detaining the claimants in detention centers because that would curb the financial incentives for them. Thank you.
Ms. Elizabeth Kwok. Thank you, President. I support Mr. Lai Tung-kwok's motion on enhancing the handling of non-refoulement claims. I support all amendments. And what we call bogus refugees are a long-standing problem. Every day I got complaints from local residents. I've been following on this problem for 10 years. 2014, we got the USM, Unified Screening Mechanism. We have taken in more than 21,000 non-refoulement claims. Roughly 1% of such cases were substantiated. As for the rest, cases of abuse, procedural abuse, those involved bogus refugees, and they got in the way and prevented us from helping real refugees. We spent more than $10 billion on supporting bogus refugees. We're now staring at a huge fiscal deficit. But every year we're spending $1 billion to support them, and we're spending such money and spending more of them by the year. Now, there was a time we spent $960 million, and then that amount went up to $1.1 billion. It's a bottomless pit. It's money down the drain. The bogus refugees came here. They had to take out a loan at first to pay the middle person. Those refugees came here and got one-stop service because someone offered them legal services. Those refugees came here to make money, so they refused to leave. They took up work illegally. They joined criminal gangs. They got involved in turf wars, street fighting. They robbed. They stole. All that happened. And they became a threat to public safety. People are worried. In the first 11 months in 2024, of the people arrested, 630 people were carrying going out passes. We got such crimes every year. Starting from 2019, altogether, we have seen more than 3,000 such cases, and they are a major threat to our public safety. I know the government has done much. We have enacted amendments to our laws. We have a new removal policy. We're fast-tracking the screening. We need to have a new removal system. We have the API system. We're taking tougher action on illegal immigrants. We are seeing results, but we have 1,000 or 2,000 new claims, and more than 15,000 claimants are still in Hong Kong. We cannot see how the government can get rid of all those claimants within the short term. So that means the abuse will remain. Our judicial process has become the best way for these claimants to stall. So that points to the necessity for a review. Let's find a true solution to the problem. Bogus refugees file an application for JR, and they keep appealing every time they fail. So they keep stalling the process, and that can drag on for 3 to 7 years. I said last year we had 7,000 such judicial review cases, and that got in the way of other JR cases. Every year, our judiciary could only handle 1,500 JR cases, but then we also get 1,500 new JR cases. So the backlog will never go away. That means the bogus refugees can stay here forever. The government should not just pass the buck to the judiciary. Instead, the executive should work with the judiciary to stamp out the abuse of judicial review. That's why I support Mr. Lai Tung-kwok's new ideas. I support changing our laws. Let's set up dedicated courts. For unsubstantiated claimants, they should not be able to file a claim for judicial review. They can only talk to a superior tribunal, only with full justification. Most bogus refugees are here to make a quick buck. So let's toughen the penalties on illegal work. Let's punish those people hiring these illegal workers. And for anyone who commits an offense here, meaning they threaten public safety here, they should be denied living allowance. Let's take away their financial incentive. And also, I'm also worried about foreign domestic helpers who end their employment early to ask for non-refoulement. There was a time at its peak when 41% of our non-refoulement claims were from FDHs. Last year, that number went down, but that was still at 22%. So the government should monitor what these helpers are doing. These bogus refugees are a serious problem. The government needs to propose a real solution. Mr. Rincon. I thank Mr. LAI Tung-kwok for moving this motion, a motion of real concern to the community. In 2014, we got the unified screening mechanism. Non-refoulement claims have been a drain on our resources. We still have 15,000 non-refoulement claims in Hong Kong. That's the figure from the Immigration Department. 8,400 claimants with their claims rejected are still in other forms of proceedings. That drains our public money, and that also leads to other resource problems. Now, based on the estimates from the Immigration Department, in 2025 to 26, our estimate is $1.3 billion just for non-refoulement claimants. Over the past 10 years, we have spent more than $10 billion on non-refoulement claimants. Had the money gone into people's lives, we would have been able to solve our housing problem. Let's look at our housing data. A flat costs $760,000 to build. That's for public housing. So the money that went into non-refoulement claims could have built for 1,400 flats, and that could have housed 300,000 people. But the resources went into legal proceedings, detention facilities, and living allowances for claimants, and that's a serious mismatch of resources. The claimants are a drain on our public resources. Let's look at our healthcare. When a claimant claims physical well-being, claims problems with their physical health-being, they get access to healthcare, and those disputes can drag on for years. Claimants stuck here cannot work legally, so they go into the underground economy. Among the workers arrested by the Immigration Department, those workers tend to be in logistics or construction, and that means they're taking away jobs from local workers. And there are other hidden costs. Enforcement also comes with a high cost. Last year, there were 17,000 operations against illegal workers. 440 non-ethnic Chinese illegal workers were arrested. There were also efforts against illegal immigration. Each month, 60 such non-Chinese illegal immigrants were intercepted. That took manpower and resources. Many measures were taken in recent years. We amended the immigration ordinance. We stepped up law enforcement at the boundary. Still, we get many cases in the backlog. So here's how we can fix it. Let's first work with the mainland and Southeast Asian countries. Let's extend our API system. Let's do advanced screening of suspicious people. Our detention facilities are limited, so many people can go out on reconnaissance, and that makes it hard to monitor what they do. So let's detain high-risk persons, and let's also talk to those countries of origin of these claimants, and let's have chartered flights to send those people back. Now, we still have to follow the CFA's precedent and also the Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman, Degrading Treatment or Punishment. We have to respect human rights, but let's also make good use of our resources so that we have a fair system that can also guard against stalling tactics on technical grounds. Our non-refoulement claims as a problem is no longer a simple matter. It's about resource allocation, it's about public safety and our international image. It's a complicated matter. Each year we spend $1 billion on this. There are thousands of cases in the backlog and there are threats to public safety. And that warrants a greater drive from the government to pursue reforms. I thank Mr. LAI Tung-kwok for his 3 suggestions, and they are potent and they make sense, and I hope the government can consider his ideas. I so submit. Mr. Ronick Chen. Many non-refoulement claimants are stuck in Hong Kong. There are a strain on our resources, and there are also public safety threats. This matter came up a lot in Legal Council questions. I thank Mr. LAI Tung-kwok for his motion. Now we can have this focused discussion about how we can improve and review our current procedures. And we would like to see legislative amendments to fix the problem. And we can shorten the stay of these claimants here. We intercept these undesirables at source, and that's paying off. But the backlog remains serious. The Security Bureau has told us, as at January this year, we still had 15,000 cases being processed. And that's a heavy burden on Hong Kong. In 2024 to 25, our estimate on this was $1.1 billion. Humanitarian assistance such as food, transport, healthcare, housing, that was $580 million. Let's fast track our cases. If we could halve our cases, we would be able to save at least $550 million for the government per year. We're trying to boost revenue and cut costs. So this expenditure deserves our attention. Our law does not set any rigid deadlines for processing. So a case can drag on without a deadline, and our review mechanisms are being exploited. So processing time gets longer and longer. So for us, we should set deadlines for reviews. When a case goes through different stages, there should be deadlines for each stage. When you exceed the time limit, we should have a summary system so that no case gets stuck in a limbo. And we now have elaborate requirements on evidence, and that also means extensive checking, and that means a time-consuming process. Now, for straightforward cases, an unduly long screening process goes against our principle and also takes up resources. For more suspicious cases, of course, let's look into those cases in detail. So we should amend our law. For strict cases with full details, let's do a summary process. And we should be reviewing the requirements of evidence from time to time to boost our efficiency. Non-refoulement claims involve the Department of Justice, the Security Bureau, and the Immigration Department. But information sharing is far from perfect now, and that leads to slow progress. So let's step up cross-departmental working platforms. Let's share data and information between departments so that all departments are on the same page in dealing with cases. Going digital is a global trend. Making greater use of technology is a great tool for case processing. So let's authorize departments to use big data and AI to classify cases and track cases, and we can also use technology to achieve greater transparency and efficiency. I visited the Castle Peak Immigration Department's facility, Castle Peak Bay Immigration Center. I listened to the views of the detainees. They would like to be repatriated to their home countries sooner. That shows detention brings inconvenience and makes people want to be sent away sooner. We don't agree. No, there has yet to be consensus on confinement as a way to get people away. But if we can put people in detention centers, they will want to leave sooner. Many claimants are stuck here for a long time and they become public safety threats and they affect our public institutions. We need ongoing review of our systems. Let's protect human rights, but we should strike a balance. Let's put resources where they make a difference in protecting people who need them. I so submit. I support the motion and the amendments.
Mr. Chan Pooran. Thank you, President. Hong Kong introduced a unified screening mechanism in 2014 for handling non-refoulement claimants, and since then, there has been an influx of non-ethnic Chinese illegal immigrants. The overstayers also increased in number. That also accounts for the surge in the number of non-refoulement claims. In the past 10 years, the government received altogether 27,700 non-refoulement claims. Only 350 of these cases were eventually substantiated. That's about 1%. At present, there are 15,000 claimants whose claims have not been substantiated, and yet they stay in Hong Kong because they filed a judicial review application because of humanitarian reasons. Every year, a lot of money comes from the public coffers to look after their well-being. In the past 10 years, in fact, we spent $5.364 billion on humanitarian aid. And taking into account the publicly funded legal aid and other expenses, in total, we spent close to $10 billion on non-refoulement claimants in the past decade. And it's a major social problem because there are different criminal activities involved. Last year, 786 non-refoulement claimants released on reconnaissance committed various crimes such as theft, wounding, criminal damage, and in recent years, they even took up illegal employment. They became delivery workers, dishwashing staff, and also packaging staff. Why is it that year after year we continue to receive non-refoulement claims? Is it because we are providing an incentive? Are we treating them too kind? I think we need to tackle the problem of bogus refugee at source, and that means we need to remove the incentive for them to come and stay in Hong Kong. In 2016, the government conducted a comprehensive review of the non-refoulement mechanism. Some responsive measures were put in place, but the situation at the moment is far from ideal. I think the government should review the mechanism again. We should intercept cases at source. We should raise the threshold for filing judicial reviews in order to clear backlogs and reduce incentive for them to come to Hong Kong. We've also introduced a new mechanism working with the mainland and the Macau counterparts. We've introduced the Advanced Passenger Information System to prevent abuse. Now, most of these claimants have come from Southeast Asia, such as in Indonesia, Vietnam, the Philippines, Pakistan, etc. The administration should step up collaboration with these jurisdictions so as to put in place vigorous screening and stop bogus refugees from coming or boarding the flight heading for Hong Kong. For non-refoulement claimants currently in Hong Kong, many of them are bogus refugees. They are entitled to the humanitarian aid, and they are also free to take up illegal work, and some of them even engage in criminal acts. The administration should consider the feasibility of detaining these claimants following the arrangement of detention for Vietnamese boat people. For claimants who have arrived in Hong Kong for some time, they must stay in some sort of closed facilities. We can make use of, say, the community isolation facilities currently being left idle to keep these non-refoulement claimants. This could help improve law and order in Hong Kong, and after we've removed the incentive, there will be fewer of them coming to Hong Kong. As for those taking up illegal employment, the government should step up inspection and patrol and also take vigorous enforcement action. Any claimant being convicted of any offense should be deprived of their eligibility. They should be kicked out from the mechanism. There should also be increased manpower so that courts can take a more focused approach to tackle the backlog. I support the original motion and the amendments. Mr. Kissenyao. Thank you, President. The non-refoulement claim mechanism has been abused for a long period of time. These non-refoulement claimants are bogus refugees. They also commit various crimes. Recently, a Turkish merchant got robbed of 5 million euros in the street. One of the arrestees was actually a bogus refugee. In the past 10 years, we spent $10 billion on the problem, and that's equivalent to building 10,000 public housing units. Imagine spending the same amount of resources on those in need. We could shorten the waiting time for public housing for grassroots. The administration has stepped up its effort in, say, intelligence sharing with mainland and Macau. And in 2022, it also updated the removal policy. At the moment, there are close to 300 pending cases, and they've been successfully repatriated. The administration also introduced the Advanced Passenger Information System to intercept the undesirables from boarding the flight, so that's interception at source. However, the undesirables continue to exploit the judicial system. They file repeated judicial review applications so that they can stay in Hong Kong for longer. In fact, close to 16,000 such claimants have stayed in Hong Kong for over 10 years. Last year, 2,814 claims were received, and that's a record high for a 7-year period, and that poses immense pressure on the Immigration Department and the judiciary. The government has streamlined the procedure for dealing with claims and the appeals. Still, it takes around 4 months for the TCAP to handle an appeal case. Now, another recent measure is that the judiciary has appointed more deputy judges at the Court of First Instance to handle non-refoulement claims. However, this is far from sufficient in tackling the 8,000 cases in the backlog. We need to leverage on technology to plug the gap and expedite the processing of cases. Well, in fact, nowadays we have different systems adopted by other countries. They make use of AI. For example, the immigration in Canada makes use of big data and large language models to enhance the accuracy of identifying bogus refugees. In Singapore, likewise, the immigration adopts AI and smart vetting process to automatically reject some apparently ineligible applications. In Hong Kong, we should do the same. For claimants from low-risk countries such as Vietnam, India, we should use AI to screen them so that the members of the TCAP can focus on more complicated cases. We can also make reference to the Nationality and Border Act in 2022 in the UK, so as to limit the number of appeals a bogus refugee could lodge to tackle the abuse. We should also remove the incentive. Instead of paying allowance in cash, we should provide aid in kind instead. And we should also revise the legal aid system. They should not be allowed to choose their own legal representative. Now, we have law firms in Hong Kong specializing in non-refoulement claims. Even before the claimants arrived in Hong Kong, they would submit the applications to the Immigration Department already. We need to revamp the system so that those receiving public legal aid can no longer choose their own legal representative. At the same time, the government should step up penalties for illegal employment so that with a strengthened enforcement, bogus refugees will be disincentivized to come to Hong Kong and commit crimes. I support the motion and all the amendments. Mr. Chan. Well, I think we're all familiar with this phrase in the broadcast in Vietnamese language, which I just cited. 30 years ago, the British colonial government produces API to warn Vietnamese boat people not to come to Hong Kong. 30 years on, we're still affected by the influx of non-refoulement claimants. Over the past 10 years, we spent $10 billion on non-refoulement claims, and every year we received many cases. Altogether, 27,800 in a period, but only some 300 cases are eventually substantiated. For the rest, they just abuse the system. There are 15,782 non-refoulement claimants in Hong Kong, deducting the 900 plus who are in the process of appeal. The rest of them are basically involved in judicial reviews or other legal proceedings. Some others are in fact in prison or under investigation. About 3,500 are removed. What's more outrageous is that these bogus refugees are not allowed to take up employment in Hong Kong. They must rely on the government's humanitarian aid, and that amounts to around $3,000 a month. So they take up resources in Hong Kong without contributing to our economy. The bogus refugee problem is getting more serious against the current fiscal position of the government. So I have the following suggestions. Now, we must expedite the removal of bogus refugees. In the first 10 months of 2024, 630 non-refoulement claimants were arrested. We have sufficient evidence that some of them are criminals, and they should be detained and they should be removed as quickly as possible for the sake of our law and order. The second suggestion is that we should step up the vetting process so that it becomes more stringent. There should be clear guidelines as to what proof should be provided to substantiate their claim, such as medical records, witnesses' testimonies, etc. If they are unable to proffer such evidence, their claims will be rejected, and they better not waste time. We should also promote bilateral collaboration with other countries such as Vietnam and Pakistan. We should sign removal agreements with them as quickly as possible so that both sides could fulfill their obligations. There should also be suitable financial incentives for these countries to work with us. The fourth suggestion is to establish an information sharing mechanism with Southeast Asian countries. For example, with the immigration departments in Southeast Asia, we share real-time information about the identities and the criminal records of these claimants so that the relevant authorities could track and ascertain the authenticity of the claims. We should also harness technology in vetting cases. Now, at the moment, the immigration screening process takes on average 10 weeks. I think there is more to be decided. The SAR government should leverage on AI and big data so that we can screen bogus applications. There should also be a dedicated team, experienced staff, with the help of technology, should be able to screen out ineligible applications in 1 or 2 weeks. Finally, we can learn from the US President Donald Trump and his hardline approach in tackling refugees. Likewise, we should set clear roadmaps and timetables so that expeditiously we can clear the backlog. I so submit. I support the motion and the amendments.
Mr. Ma Tung-kwok. President, I speak in support of Mr. Lai Tung-kwok's motion and the amendments. Since the establishment of the relevant mechanism, the number of non-refoulement claims has been on the rise in Hong Kong. In 2024, we received 2,814 cases. Compared with the previous 2 years, there was a significant increase. The mover, Mr. LAI Tung-kwok, mentioned that by September 2029, there were more than 14,900 claimants stranded in Hong Kong. 8,200 of them have been rejected leave to appeal. At present, there are 15,800 people stranded in Hong Kong. It shows that more and more claimants are seeking asylum in Hong Kong, which poses a huge financial burden in Hong Kong. According to the government statistics, in 2024, the estimated cost run up to $364 million, and in legal aid, $114 million. Accumulatively, we have spent more than $10 billion in aid for the claimants. It is draining our resources, and some claimants have contravened offenses like illegal employment, drug trafficking, and violence. They affected our security. In 2020, the Security Bureau, the Immigration Department passed the unified screening mechanism and enhanced the efficiency in screening the cases and enhanced the enforcement capability. And last year, the API system was implemented to stop the influx of non-refoulement claimants at source. However, the numbers still rose. We really need to step up our efforts in combating the matter. Now, for example, in Switzerland, the tiered humanitarian system was implemented after the European refugee crisis. Tiered treatments were offered to refugees from various countries. For high-risk countries, the vetting time would be longer. For low-risk refugees, like those from Albania, they would have their cases vetted quickly. These are financial refugees. Now, after the change, the number of refugees from Morocco and other countries have dropped by 45%. A survey shows that the tiered mechanism reduced the number of abuse by 50%. It shows that the tiered mechanism is effective. In terms of case management model, there should be a semi-open detention center model. Now, claimants are allowed to roam free in the territory. It poses challenges to administration. Managing the claimants in a centralized model can help the government combat illegal employment more effectively and also offer training to them. Humanitarian aid should also be paid in kind rather than in money to avoid abuse. There should also be a regular review on the performance of the claimants and the progress of the cases. Enhancing the legislative framework is the key to speeding up treatment. For apparently unjustified claims, there should be a more effective mechanism to penalize these claimants and also strip the claimants of the right to file appeal again. For unscrupulous intermediaries, there should be punishment as well. Now, despite through flexible deployments of manpower and streamlining of resources, the Immigration Department has sped up the vetting time for application. There should be a quick channel for processing the cases. There should be a dedicated team of judges to handle the cases to clear the backlog. Enhancing the non-refoulement claim mechanism can save a lot of unnecessary expenditure. Now, with a huge financial deficit, we need to focus our resources on other aspects. From a public security point of view, we can reduce the number of claimants stranded in Hong Kong and reduce the security risk posed to the community. In general, we need to adopt a multi-pronged approach from attacking the problem at source and also international collaboration and the streamlining of process. Only then can we address this issue, which has been troubling us for a long time, and enhance our long-term prosperity and fair distribution of resources. Thank you.
Mr. Chen Yong, thank you, President. I also thank the Secretary for attending. We fully agree with Mr. LAI Tung-kwok's original motion and the amendments by the members. I think it's rather convincing that the motion comes from Mr. Lai because he was a former Secretary for Security, so he is very familiar with the entire system, and his suggestions will be very on point. Well, we have spent close to $10 billion on refugees and bogus refugees. I think the precious resources should be reserved for Hong Kong people. I strongly support the motion to enhance the handling on non-refoulement claims. We should process their applications in the most efficient and effective way to protect the interest of Hong Kong people. There are about 27,000 non-refoulement claims. As newspapers said, only 350 of them have been substantiated. This is not cost-effective, and it's unfair to genuine refugees because their cases will be lost in a large number of bogus cases. Their cases, genuine, though it may be, will be delayed. The $10 billion does not count social costs in the form of crime, as well as departmental costs to combat these crimes. So we have a hefty social cost to pay. Well, our human rights standard is much higher than European and America, European countries and America, as well as advanced economies. So we are beyond criticism. Some people may think that changing the law may be difficult and time-consuming. But as you see that we have a high-quality democracy in Hong Kong, we process everything with high efficiency. Legislation that's been dragging on for a very long time has been effectively and swiftly dealt with. So we can do the same here. We expect that the administration will step up their work to expedite the process. Mr. Gary Chan has made a number of good suggestions. I asked the administration to consider them. Say, for example, prevent abuse of judicial review mechanism and to enhance and make good use of detention facilities. In the past decade, legislators and lots of different groups have made similar suggestions. Say, for example, curbing it at source, working with Macau, mainland, and other authorities to stop them from coming. There can be effective government policies, advanced passenger information, expediting processing of cases and appeals. Well, the time needed has been compressed from 7 to 4 months, but it can be compressed further. There is also an update of the removal process. We need to enhance detention facilities so that offenders are unable to get back into the community. We need to enhance the capability or the capacity of detention facilities. We can make use of the makeshift hospital, use them as places of detention. We need to take into account global trend. I talked about curbing it at source, enhancing cooperation. We need to raise their opportunity cost. If they can't come to make a quick buck, then it's less the incentive for them to come. We have to put in place an alliance with other countries, set up a working group with other ASEAN countries. This issue has been plaguing us. We need to make good use of the resources spent on them, spend them on our people. Mr. Vincent Chang, I thank Mr. Lai for moving the original motion, that is to enhance the handling of these claims. We need to work together to resolve this problem that's been plaguing us for a very long time. I agree with what Mr. Lai said. unsubstantiated claimants have been staying in Hong Kong. That number is high. We need to expedite the handling of these cases and enhance the removal procedure to send them back. In 2014, there was the unified screening mechanism. Well, there was a legislative amendment. On top of that, there is the advanced passenger information by airline operators. A lot of efforts have been put into it. We see the number of people coming in climbing up. On top of that, there is the backlog of cases to be processed. I think the government needs to come up with new ways to handle it. If you leave it, I'm afraid that it does no one any good. In the past decade or so, number of cases involved a cost of over $10 billion. I think we have spent a large amount of money and resources to handle these cases. We've learned about cases from the news on the 2nd of November, a South Asian male snatched properties from some other people. The police tried to tackle the case and they were injured. This person is someone who is 36, staying in Hong Kong for over 10 years. He's on reconnaissance. What has he been doing? Does he have family? Does he have children? He receives a subsidy of $2,000. What does he live on? Is he working as a legal worker? Does he just want to use Hong Kong as a springboard to go to the US or Europe? The immigration has identified a lot of illegal workers on reconnaissance. I'm from Kowloon West, Sum Shui Po, Yau Chim Wong. I see a large number of South Asian people just loitering in the district. Residents are afraid. They want to stay clear from them. Ethnic minorities who have been living here for a very long time, those who grow up here, find it unfair because they'll be seen as bogus refugees as well. So for ethnic minorities working and studying in Hong Kong, that is not good. According to information, in the past decade, there are 27,000 cases. However, only 351% that has been substantiated. That is not ideal. The DAB has been concerned with bogus refugee problems. I have some suggestions. We need to curb the problem at its source. We ask law enforcement agencies to enhance cooperation with mainland authorities, say, for example, intelligence exchange, joint operations, and crack down on syndicates. Or non-refoulement claimants may commit a crime in Hong Kong. Well, in Kowloon West, they are the highest number of offenders, this group. So should there be a dedicated detention facilities to keep people who are posing risk to our community? In relation to judicial reviews, it is another issue. They make use of this process to delay the time in Hong Kong. Can we increase resources, manpower, increase the number of dedicated judges, and expedite the vetting process? On top of that, there is joint operation to tackle illegal workers. We need to deter employers to employ illegal workers. I support Mr. LAI Tung-kwok's original motion and the amendments from the other three members.
Mr. Frankie Yik, President, the Liberal parties have been concerned about the issue of non-refoulement claims in Hong Kong over the past decades. $10 billion of public money is involved and incurred, and many social problems resulted. According to the latest statistics, there are still 15,800 non-refoulement claimants in Hong Kong. The large number of non-refoulement claimants here is worrisome. They stay here because of the Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman, or Degrading Treatment or Punishment that Hong Kong follows. I know that it's not easy for us to leave the convention, and the relevant departments have rolled out many measures to reduce the number of bogus refugees to minimize the impact caused to the society. But it's not effective. So I think that the government should look into other measures to combat the issue of bogus refugees. In the 2024-25 budget, we've spent $364 million on processing the applications. $59 million are spent on repatriation, humanitarian assistance, $583 million. So we spent a total of $1.15 billion on handling all these non-refoulement claims. Given the fiscal deficit, we must spend our resources on residents in need instead on bogus refugees. We should not waste our resources. Apart from wasting our resources, the non-refoulement claimants pose burden on the court. Since the implementation of the USM, the government have received 27,754 applications. Only 350 or so have been substantiated, accounting for only 1% of the total number of applications. The rest are bogus refugees. Those unsubstantiated claimants continue to lodge reviews or judicial reviews or leave applications for appeal. They waste taxpayers' money and pose burden to the judicial system of Hong Kong. The bogus refugee problem has all along been a problem for us. They work illegally. We need other measures to deal with the issue. For bogus refugees who are released from prison after committing crime, they are not repatriated. They often file another claims. I think that we should detain them immediately until they are repatriated to their place of origin. Lastly, on interception at source, apart from working with authorities from the mainland and other countries to stop bogus refugees from coming, I hope that the government will legislate to cancel the system of reconnaissance to disincentivize people from coming to Hong Kong illegally. Refugees who are on reconnaissance work illegally in Hong Kong, and this impacts the society. It is necessary for us to amend our ordinance to cancel the reconnaissance of the bogus refugees and detain them at certain areas. And this will disincentivize and discourage them from coming to Hong Kong. I so submit. I speak in support of the original motion and the amendments. Mr. Chan Kim-por. Thank you, President. The abuse of non-refoulement claims system has been troubling Hong Kong. As mentioned, only 1% of the 27,754 applications were real. We have over 15,000 non-refoulement claimants stranded in Hong Kong. The expenditure on detention and processing of judicial review application amount to over $1 billion. They also pose security threats to Hong Kong. I thank Mr. LAI Tung-kwok for moving the motion so that we can discuss this issue. The government has rolled out a number of measures, and they are effective to a certain extent. In 2022, upon improvement of the repatriation system, the administration can proceed with removal of unsubstantiated claimants upon dismissal of their judicial review. And through the advanced passenger information system, the administration can request information of passengers from aircraft operators. As at February this year, we have 82 aircraft operators working with us, and we have stopped many bogus refugees from boarding the airplane. Some of them had filed non-refoulement claims in Hong Kong, which had been rejected. From January to November 2024, the Immigration Department received 2,646 applications. 790 of them are illegal immigrants. Once their claims are unsubstantiated, they will try their best to stay behind. That's why we have a backlog of 8,400 cases. So I think that the administration should increase the manpower of the judiciary, streamline the procedures to clear the backlog of cases. I think that we should perhaps establish a dedicated court to handle such cases. Also, we should establish a dedicated working force to consolidate resources of Immigration Department, the police, and set KPIs, as well as speed up case processing. We should also verify the non-refoulement claims. There are 3,500 of non-refoulement claimants who are waiting for repatriation. Some of them refuse to produce a proof of identity. As we don't have a bio-identity database, it's difficult for us to verify the identity of the non-refoulement claimants. I think that we should work with, say, Indonesia, Vietnam, the Philippines, and Pakistan to ask them to offer information on the identity of the claimants, and we should also prevent human smuggling. Lastly, we should discourage non-refoulement claimants from coming to Hong Kong to make money. As such, November 2024, there have been 11,000 non-refoulement claimants being jailed. But due to the lack of detention places, many of them were not able to be detained. While for non-refoulement claimants who have been committing crimes, we should detain them, prevent them from entering the society. Also, we should send this message that the government is combating bogus refugees and illegal employment. Through judicial reform and international collaboration, the government should curb the problem at source. Ms. Carmen Khan. Thank you, President. I thank Mr. LAI Tung-kwok for moving the motion and the three members for their amendments. The non-refoulement claims system in Hong Kong has been abused. Many unsubstantiated claimants are stranded in Hong Kong. This has increased the financial burden of Hong Kong, and we spend $1 billion on it every year. As at November 2024, there were over 700 people on non-recognizance who have committed crimes and were arrested. We should not ignore this problem. The government should prevent potential claimants from coming to Hong Kong. Second, we should process the case speedily. Third, we should repatriate unsubstantiated claimants. I think that there are room for improvement, so I propose three suggestions. First, we must step up interception at source. As at November 2024, there are still 15,000 claimants who are stranded in Hong Kong. Over 40% are illegal immigrants. So I think that the administration must intercept the claimants at source. I know that the administration has rolled out the Advanced Passenger Information System on the 3rd of September 2024. In the government's reply to my oral question, as said, 21st of February, there were 55% of aircraft operators have their system linked to the API system. I think that we should speed up implementation of the API system so that more aircraft operators can join. The mainland has relaxed multiple visa arrangements earlier, and some undesirables may try to enter Hong Kong through mainland. So I think that we should step up intelligence exchange with mainland authorities so that non-refoulement claimants will not come via the mainland. Also, the administration should devise measures to lower the economic incentives of non-refoulement claimants so that they will not try to work illegally here. also, we should repatriate unsubstantiated claimants as soon as possible. According to the 2024 decision of the final Court of Appeal, the Hagel-Singh principle, if the Immigration Department cannot repatriate the relevant person in time, then they should not continue to detain them. So by speeding up the processing time, we can combat the problem. Since the 7th of November 2022, the administration have improved the system every year. The number of repatriation went from 750 to 1,800 in 2023 from 2021. But compared to the large number of non-refoulement claimants stranded in Hong Kong, there is still room for us to improve. Some non-refoulement claimants refuse to produce proof of identity or apply for travel documents. I think that we should ask the non-refoulement claimants to fill out information on their identity and travel documents when they file non-refoulement claims. Mr. Tang Ka-piu proposed amendment to ordinance so that we can repatriate non-refoulement claimants immediately. This is not viable because of the 2024 court judgment. I think that the government will still have to comply with all of the requirements. They have to complete the scrutiny of the application before they repatriate the claimants. Mr. LAI Tung-kwok proposed to have a first-tier tribunal and upper tribunal. I think that we should explore these options. By this, we can make sure that the applications are dealt with fairly and justly. It will also streamline our judicial process. President, the problem of bogus refugees have been troubling us for years. I think that the government should show determination in protecting the interest of the entire society and security of Hong Kong. I so submit. Thank you.
主席，
Ms. Judy Chan. Thank you, President. I speak in support of the motion moved by my party colleague, Mr. Lai. This has been a problem plaguing us. According to information, when the Immigration Department is handling the cases, they found that the number of cases reached a peak in 2015. The number of cases reached 10,000. However, with the introduction of the unified screening mechanism, the figures plunge. There were only hundreds of cases of the claimants being stranded in Hong Kong. The TCAB Torture Claims Appeal Board finished handling the cases pending appeal in 2020. As Mr. Lai said in the opening remarks, for the backlog of cases, the TCAB, they have nothing to do with the TCAB and the Immigration Department. They are simply backlog cases pending determination by the court. According to latest figures, there are about 8,600 cases pending handling. This is the primary reason why claimants are being stranded in Hong Kong. Now that we have identified the cause, why don't we work on it? As Mr. Lai said, we may consider making legislative amendments. On top of the Torture Claims Appeal Board, we need to have a higher court handling appeals. I believe this is an effective measure for handling this problem. This measure has drawn reference from the practice in the UK. Court procedures can be streamlined. For instance, judges can be empowered to pay regard to the circumstances of the cases before deciding whether or not a face-to-face hearing needs to be held. So non-refoulement claimants don't have to apply for a face-to-face hearing no matter what. Non-refoulement claim problem has been plaguing us. Every year, the Hong Kong government has to spend a lot on handling non-refoulement claims. Latest figures show last year, the government spent at least $1.1 billion on it, the most being legal assistance, humanitarian assistance, and repatriation. Figures show the increase in humanitarian assistance was the most significant, from $150 million in 2010 to 11. The figure rose to $730 million in 2016 to 2017. The administration didn't announce the figures last year, or they are yet to do so. But I believe for the non-refoulement claimants being stranded in Hong Kong are on the rise. So I believe the number of people receiving humanitarian assistance will only go up. Therefore, I agree with Mr. Lai that we should consider setting a reasonable time frame. When a claimant fails in the application and the appeal before he is repatriated, we may have to consider providing cash allowances. The number of lodging judicial reviews may not decrease immediately, but then the pressure on the public coffers will be eased as soon as possible. President, for foreign domestic helpers, a number of years ago, the number of non-refoulement claims, about 35% of these claims were foreign domestic helpers. The figures have dropped, but then some 20% are still foreign domestic helpers. That's why we need to look into the situation. We need to see why when foreign domestic helpers come to Hong Kong, they will file such claims. For instance, we may identify any similarities. Say, do they have preference for certain lawyers? Do any intermediaries help them? I hope the administration will look into the situation, identify the causes, and look for a solution. Your time is up. Dr. So Chang-wing. Thank you, Deputy President. The issue of bogus refugees has been plaguing Hong Kong for a long time. They abuse the non-refoulement claim mechanism so that they can stay in Hong Kong. Only 1% of the claims were substantiated. Over the last 10 years, over $10 billion of public funds have been spent. Right now, 11,000 non-refoulement claimants are being stranded in Hong Kong. Some make quick money and engage in illegal activities, say trafficking in dangerous drugs, robbery, taking up illegal work, and so on. They affect the law and order situation in Hong Kong. The government has been working very hard, and we have started to see results. But then this is a deep-rooted problem. We haven't yet been able to eradicate the problem. I agree with Mr. Lai's original motion and the amendments moved by other members. I hope that the government will improve the system on different fronts. One, we need to work with international organizations to intercept claimants at source. We need to work with Southeast Asian countries to combat syndicates. We need to make good use of the Advanced Passenger Information System, API system, to identify high-risk visitors in order to prevent bogus refugees from coming to Hong Kong. Say Vietnam, India, Bangladesh. We need to enhance intelligence exchange. We need to prevent bogus refugees from coming to Hong Kong. We also need to require claimants upon arrival into Hong Kong provide sufficient information. We need to curb any delaying tactics if they submit information late. We also need to enhance the non-refoulement claim mechanism. We need to reduce the handling time by a large margin. We also need to prevent the abuse of the mechanism being used as a delaying tactic. We also need to introduce AI to give priority to handling high-risk cases. For claimants who are released, they should be detained until they are repatriated from Hong Kong. We need to enhance taking law enforcement action. The Immigration Department, the Police Force, Security Bureau, SWD, Social Welfare Department need to work together. They need to exchange figures in relation to the criminal record of claimants in order to expedite the decision-making process. We also need to increase the penalty for employing illegal workers in Hong Kong. We need to have semi-closed camp to centralize the management of claimants. We need to limit their activities in society. We also need to stop providing cash assistance. We need to provide other forms of assistance just to help them live in Hong Kong. We need to decrease their incentive of staying in Hong Kong. We need to amend the immigration ordinance to specify that the non-refoulement claim mechanism is only applicable to the high-risk claimants. We need to expedite the repatriation mechanism against unsubstantiated claimants. We need to prevent the abuse of the United Nations Convention Against Torture. We need to solve the problem at source, take law enforcement actions, improve policies. We need to take a multi-pronged approach. We need to solve the problem in a systematic manner. Thank you. Mr. Kingsley Wong. Thank you, Deputy President. I speak in support of Mr. Lai's original motion and the other three amendments. In recent years, we have a fiscal deficit, but then we still need to spend 1 billion Hong Kong dollars on handling non-refoulement claims. In the last 12 years, we have spent over $10 billion on this issue. This amount of money could have been used to improve livelihood, but then these claimants engage in illegal acts and affect law and order in Hong Kong. They affect the employment rights of local workers. This has given rise to deep-seated conflicts. Over $5.4 billion have been spent on humanitarian assistance in the past 10 years or so. Different housing allowances were provided to claimants. There are also medical allowances. The Immigration Department needs to create 217 non-directorate posts to handle non-refoulement claims. Salary expenses totaled $64 million. A total of 15,800 non-refoulement claimants are being stranded in Hong Kong. They have put a lot of pressure on the local economy. Bogus refugees also cause a huge impact on the employment market in Hong Kong. They usually take up illegal work, say food delivery career or construction work. They disguise themselves as food delivery careers of the platform using reconnaissance. So they take away the job opportunities of locals. Government survey shows over 60% of platform workers said that combating illegal workers is high on the agenda. Therefore, we can see the gravity of bogus refugees. Bogus refugees affect law and order situation in Hong Kong. Last year, 786 NEC people were arrested in Hong Kong. Theft, serious battery, vandalism, and so on. They committed these offenses. The the issue of bogus refugees is rampant. If we do not solve the problem, all Hong Kong people will have to foot the bill. We shouldn't see this issue as a simple humanitarian issue. It has to do with the local job market, the welfare, and so on. This problem is deteriorating. We need to face the situation squarely. We need to solve this problem. We need to require platform companies to verify identity of workers. We need to combat illegal workers. Reconnaissance forms shouldn't be used as identity cards. The government should solve the problem at source to prevent the abuse of the mechanism and solve the issue of bogus refugees. Thank you.
Mrs. Regina Ip. First, I'd like to thank Mr. Lai Tung-kwok for moving this motion. I also thank the three amenders for their amendments. I've been listening to members. We fully understand the problem of bogus refugees, bogus torture claims have been a problem in Hong Kong for a very long time. Yes, the process of non-refoulement claims handling is compressed to 10 months, which is an improvement. The Torture Claims Board has also expedited the processing. But in Hong Kong, there are about 8,000 people who are stranded in Hong Kong because they are waiting for judicial review cases. Hong Kong is under the rule of law. We are an international city. We have our law, we have the Basic Law. Basic Law, Article 39, implements the Bill of Rights as well as the ICCPR, which is the same as our own Hong Kong Bill of Rights Ordinance. A lot of non-refoulement claimants make use of our legal process to prolong their time in Hong Kong. Mr. Lai has looked into an UK example. He suggested that a new tribunal is to be established. In the UK, there is a higher level of court, which is an upper tribunal. When the case is handled and the appeal is quashed, then removal kicks in, regardless of whether there are other legal proceedings in process. I have not looked into the UK law. I don't know whether further judicial review is stopped because there are some provisions that have barred that. But if the case has gone through the upper tribunal and then the person is removed, still the person who's gone back to his country of origin, say Vietnam, can still lodge a judicial review. But it wouldn't be easy for them to stay in Hong Kong to work or do anything illegal. I asked the administration to seriously consider it. Regarding other amendments, I support it. I support them, although there are some technical issues with Mr. Ka-piu's motion, Ka-piu's amendment. He says that in order to prevent abuse of non-refoulement claim mechanism and to combat maintenance and people assisting these potential claimants, he said that law enforcement agencies should be given the power to immediately deport that person, but that's not in line with the law. Article 35, Article 38, it says that Hong Kong residents enjoyed freedoms and rights safeguarded by the law. So they should be allowed to make an appeal. Well, the word English version deportation is used. Under Immigration Ordinance Section 20, the power is delegated by the Chief Executive to the Secretary of Security instead of the immigration, and it also involves an imprisonment of at least 2 years. So there is this technical issue. That's why we will abstain from Mr. Tang's amendment. Mr. Kwok Wai-kang, I speak in support of the original motion as well as the 3 amendments. I thank Mr. Lai Tung-kwok for moving this motion to give us a chance to have a debate. Well, I'm sure that when it comes to 1 to 99, then you will think about the dilution proportion to clean your place. But when it comes to substantiated cases, it is a ratio of 1 to 99. This will remove our compassion and sympathy to these cases. We each year spend $1 billion on these cases, 10 years, $10 billion. If you're standing on the side of Hong Kong, you will think that it is a problem and it has to be resolved. There is no room for mercy. Well, there is an adverse impact brought by these bogus refugees. First and foremost, illegal workers. Delivery workers suffered most. The amount they get every order keeps dropping because there are plenty of delivery workers mushrooming. So the pay per order has been dropping. At the beginning of 2024, an affiliation of our union has done some work. We asked the law enforcement agency to enhance their law enforcement action. Just before the Chinese New Year last year, over 2 weeks, there was no illegal workers. And it was only then that delivery workers, legitimate ones, got work to do, but it only lasted 2 weeks. We asked, well, these people have engaged in illegal work. Shouldn't they be punished? Mr. Lai Tung-kwok asked a question. As at the end of November 2024, the number of imprisoned non-refoulement claimants stands at 703, including shop theft, assault, serious assault, drugs-related, criminal damage, burglary. For more serious offenses, excluding illegal work, are armed robberies. Well, you don't find illegal workers in these detention facilities because it's already swarmed with people who have committed a crime. So that's why when the illegal workers are caught, they continue to do illegal work. They are competing for job opportunities with local workers. While I've visited prisoners, that's part of my duty, this is what I found. The person involved was actually seeking medical attention. Between 2014 and 2024, about 108,000 people use HA service, and they are non-refoulement claimants. So it's about 18,000 a year. So on top of using our resources, they use our service as well. We need to look at non-monetary cost. Yes, tackling the problem at its root is important. But as other members have said, we need to tighten the procedure so that our resources will not be abused. And our resources should not be wasted. Non-refoulement claimants should cooperate by submitting information required. It should not be the other way around. At least that is the least that should be done. Mr. CHAN Hak-kan. Detention centers are crammed. And the situation there is complicated. I respect the immigration for handling such a difficult task. The situation is like this because there are simply too many people. Some of these people know that they don't have any chance of staying in Hong Kong. If they want to leave Hong Kong early, then they need to do something. Well, if we want to send them away as soon as possible, then should we expedite the process? We have to buy them a plane ticket to send them away. I think the formalities itself will take 1 month to 3. Can we expedite this process, this step? We just want to move things fast in the entire process to send them away. We need to look at every step of the way to find a way. We need to efficiently handle all application process. Just now, Mr. Kwok talks about the ratio of 1 to 99. Successful cases or substantiated cases account for a small amount. Most of these people are bogus refugees. They are on reconnaissance. A lot of them commit crime. 2 out of 100 have a criminal record. As at October last year, over 600 people have been arrested. So these bogus refugees on reconnaissance pose a risk to Hong Kong's law and order. I asked the administration to give it some thought. Tighten the system or the mechanism of reconnaissance. Reduce the number of people that are on reconnaissance. If you detain them, then they can't work illegally. Then it reduces their incentive to come to Hong Kong. This is a different way to stop them from coming. Of course, there may be technical issues. We support the amendments. There is consensus on this issue. We all support the tackling of non-bogus refugees and non-bogus refugee issues as soon as possible. Well, in relation to Mr. Tang's amendment, it may not be technically feasible, but it reflects the wish of the general public. We just want to send them away as soon as possible. Can we change the law? Or do it another way to overcome the technical difficulties? In any event, Mr. Tang has spoken for Hong Kong people. DAB supports the amendments.
Dr. Junius Ho. Deputy President, I fully support the motion. We should solve the problem early. Instead of trying to be a good person, why not be genuine instead? We must be determined in solving this issue. We have been having this issue for over 10 years. And the judicial process currently is hopeless. We have so many cases, we don't have enough judges. And there are incoming bogus refugees who are going to file judicial review. We have limited resources and limited time. With so much workload at hand, we must be determined. We all know what this issue is about. Mr. LAI Tung-kwok is a very experienced officers in the law enforcement agencies. I don't think that we should hesitate in addressing the issue. First, we need to save the refugees. We need to protect them so that they will not be used as means to commit crime, so that no syndicates will hire them to become smugglers, drug traffickers, robbers. This does not only impact them, but also our society. We are also paying these bogus refugees. It seems that we are buying our problems. I don't think that we should care about the convention. We can only save others when we can save ourselves. If we can't even save ourselves, we should address the issue. We should not dwell on the problem. We should legislate. We should solve the issue faster than what the U.S. is doing. We should repatriate the bogus refugees as soon as possible. The Secretary is smart and intelligent. Now the members give you confidence. I will support the creation of a new position to address the issue. I so submit. Does any other member wish to speak? Mr. Paul Chair. Deputy President, given our fiscal deficit, I think we all understand why we have this consensus in this chamber and the community that we should solve the issue as soon as possible. Even in the Western countries, when they claim to advocate for human rights because of economic and social issues, their local governments have become more tilted towards the right. The leftist government have left office. The UK adopts different means to address the issue. The UK government ignored the decision of the court. The US, we see that they repatriate suspected child society members from Venezuela to El Salvador. Australia, I think Mr. Lam Sang-kun talked about their problem. Despite the court ruling in Australia against the policies of the government saying that they're against human rights, the government eventually gave up on the measures and policies. But it seems that all the governments in the world are tilting towards the right-wing side of politics. With the FB case in the 2024 court ruling, the CFI uphold the principle of fairness. Although the burden of evidence is with the defendants, we should accord enough time for the claimants to file application, and the government should scrutinize the application. If the application is rejected, the government should give enough reasons. Otherwise, the applicant may file for judicial review. The government should also take proactive action in protecting the refugees. They should also offer legal assistance. In the MV case, it says that the government should offer a duty lawyer to represent the claimants. With all these measures, it seems that we're stuck. I know that the Security Bureau has adopted many measures to intercept the problem at source, and they've worked with the judiciary. But it seems that we still can't solve the problem. I agree with a lot of the suggestions given by the members. Hong Kong is a very special place. After a ruling's been handed down by the Court of Final Appeal, if it is said that the government policy is against the Convention Against Torture or against human rights, there is no other mechanism that we can invoke to address the issue. So it seems that the Court of Final Appeal has the final say. After the UK Court of Final Appeal made a ruling, the Parliament of the UK can roll out a new policy to guard against that stance. So I think that the government should look into actual circumstances and try to strike a balance, relax our judicial restraints. I think that also the government should be more proactive. Say, for example, we have been troubled by the protection of the harbor ordinance for a long time, and now the government is rolling out new legislation to revoke the overarching principle of presumption against reclamation. We should not just blindly follow the decision made by the CFI and the CFA. Thank you. Does any other member wish to speak? Mr. LAI Tung-kwok, you may now speak on the amendments. Deputy President, I thank Mr. CHAN Hak-kan, Dr. Hoey Simon Lee, and Mr. Ka-piu for moving the motions, and 27 members for speaking in support of the motion. Regarding Mr. CHAN Hak-kan's amendments, I support it. In his amendment, he talked about improving the judicial review mechanism, making good use of detention facilities, and the problem of security issues. I stress the importance of improving the judicial review mechanism. I've looked at the judgments of courts. I found that many people try to prolong their stay in Hong Kong by filing out-of-time application, making repeated application, or asking for oral hearing. What tools should the court use to solve the issues? Well, the judge has to make a restricted proceedings order by convening a hearing. Such orders have gone from 60 in 2016 to 1,000 in 2017, 3,000 in 2018, to 8,000 this year. So I'm glad that Mr. CHAN Hak-kan talked about this in his amendment, and I hope that the administration will incorporate the suggestions that I made in my motion by establishing a upper tribunal that handle judicial review and appeals, and assign dedicated judge to decide on whether leave for appeal is granted. I think that we don't have enough detention facilities. The reason why we don't have enough capacity is because the refugees refuse to cooperate. The number of habeas corpus orders increased. According to statistics, in the first 11 months in 2024, there were 114 habeas corpus orders application. Only 3 were granted, and some of them have been appealed by the government with success. Substantial resources have been incurred. These bogus refugees adopt different means in order to stay behind. To solve the problem, we must devise a series of measures. increasing the capacity of detention facilities is one of the ways for us to solve the problem. Dr. Hoey Simon Lee's amendment also talk about curbing the abuse of non-refoulement claim mechanism at source. Time is limited. Madam Deputy, the problem is that our coastline is too long. Bogus refugees find it easy to enter Hong Kong via vessels. As long as they enter the territory, they can seek help by filing non-refoulement claims. During adverse weather, our government officials have to help them while risking their lives. In order for us to curb the problem at source, we must collect intelligence from countries where smugglers advertise the non-refoulement claim mechanism in Hong Kong. So we must combat such syndicates of smugglers. Many members said that many employers, many foreign domestic helpers who were dismissed by their employers tried to file non-refoulement claims. The number in 2024 is lower than that of 2021, but that still accounts for 22% of the total number of claims filed. As for Mr. Tang Ka-piu's amendment, I agree with what Mrs. Regina Ip said just now, as there are some technical issues with the amendment, so we will abstain from voting.
Secretary for Security. Deputy President, I'm grateful to Mr. Lai Tung-kwok for moving this motion, the three members for their amendments, and other members who have just now spoken on this issue. This debate fully shows members and the public's concerns over the handling of non-refoulement claims. I will respond to members' suggestions and explain these strategies adopted by the government and their effectiveness. Members suggested that we should further combat illegal immigrants. Interception at source is a first line of defense against the abuse of the mechanism. The government will continue to provide high-level steer through the task force set up together with the mainland and Macau, who strengthen intelligence exchange, jointly investigate cross-boundary human smuggling syndicates, and carry out joint patrols with a view to deterring illegal immigrants from coming to Hong Kong. In February 2025, the number of NCE people arrested in Hong Kong decreased by over 90% from the peak in October 2023. The units in the three places will continue to exchange intelligence in accordance with the existing mechanism, and we will deter NCE persons from entering Hong Kong on all fronts. Some members mentioned repatriating persons upon arrest, and the government may immediately repatriate non-refoulement claimants convicted of an offense, but then we must respect the rule of law and adhere to law-based administration. According to the judgment laid down by the Court of Final Appeal in 2012, the government cannot remove any person, however dangerous or undesirable his conduct is, to another state where he faces a genuine and substantial risk of cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment. In other words, it remains a duty of the government to meet the court's requirement to complete all the screening procedures which meet the high standard of fairness before repatriating a claimant. The immediate repatriation policy involves extremely complicated issues. Care must be exercised in balancing legal risks and implementation feasibility. Members expressed concerns over the progress of implementing the API system. The government has implemented the API system in phases since September 2024. At present, over 90% of incoming passenger arrivals are covered. The Immigration Department will ensure system connections will be completed in an orderly manner by September 2025. As I mentioned just now, In just a few months of operation, the API system has been effective in successfully identifying and denying the boarding of flights by ineligible persons, including those who had lodged non-refoulement claims in Hong Kong but were eventually rejected. Members suggested that we attach importance to intelligence collection and strengthen law enforcement against the illegal acts of non-refoulement claims. The police has been deploying manpower and stepping up patrols having regard to the trends of crimes in all districts, with a view to preventing and detecting crimes committed by NEC persons as well as non-refoulement claimants. We take swift actions to combat illegal acts. In May 2023, the police upgraded its crime wing working group on NEC involvement in organized crime and triad activities to a steering committee. It is chaired by a senior assistant commissioner of police. It strengthens the review of the relevant crime situation and intelligence collection, enhances coordination, and formulates more strategic enforcement actions. On the crime statistics of non-ethnic Chinese persons on reconnaissance and issue with Form 8, the police will provide the court with relevant figures upon the conviction for the purpose of enhancing the sentence. For example, in February 2024, an NEC person on reconnaissance with a Form 8 was convicted of trafficking in dangerous drugs in the High Court. His immigration status was an aggravating factor, and his term of imprisonment was increased by 12 months to 31 years. Some members suggested taking strengthened law enforcement actions against legal workers. In 2024, the Immigration Department conducted a total of 13,306 inspections, up by 254 from 2023. A total of 444 NEC illegal workers and 146 employers were arrested respectively. In the first 2 months of 2025, the Immigration Department conducted over 2,200 inspections, arresting 63 NEC illegal workers and 34 employers. In fact, the government amended the Immigration Ordinance in 2021 to increase the penalty for employing illegal workers. The maximum penalty of a fine of $350,000 and imprisonment of 3 years was drastically increased to a fine of $500,000 and imprisonment of 10 years to show the severity of the relevant offense. The High Court has laid down sentencing guidelines that the employer of an illegal worker should be given an immediate custodial sentence. The increased penalty has already carried a deterrent effect. Some members mentioned that some non-refoulement claimants are involved in illegal work, say food career service. We mounted an operation and arrested a total of 14 illegal workers, some of whom are non-refoulement claimants. The operation was codenamed Light Shadow. 13 non-refoulement claimants were arrested. 10 suspected aiders and abettors who are Hong Kong residents were also arrested on suspicion of selling or renting their food delivery courier accounts to the illegal workers. We will continue to liaise with platforms and request them to verify the identity of food delivery couriers with the aim of deterring illegal workers from using the accounts of others to engage in food delivery. Some members brought up the issue that non-refoulement claimants having worked as a foreign domestic helper before filing a claim. The Security Bureau and the Immigration Department have all along worked with Consulates General Hong Kong and will continue to do so. We step up publicity and education for newly arrived foreign domestic helpers, FDH, so that they understand the non-refoulement claim mechanism should not be abused and that illegal employment in Hong Kong is a serious offense liable to imprisonment. Meanwhile, they also need to understand that if they have abused the mechanism, work visas will not be granted to them in the future. Under the government's multi-pronged approach in handling the relevant issue, the situation of FDH raising claims has improved. The number of claims raised by former FDH in 2024 was reduced from the peak of 58% in 2022 to 22% in 2024. Some members suggested that the government specify the eligibility for lodging non-refoulement claims, and expedite their screening. As I said, according to the judgment laid down by the Court of Final Appeal, the government needs to complete all the screening procedures meeting the high standard of fairness before repatriating a claimant whose claim is unsubstantiated. The time taken for a claim to be processed by the Immigration Department has been reduced by 60% from 25 weeks to 10 weeks on average. The newly received non-refoulement claims are processed immediately. The TCAB, Torture Claims Appeal Board, comprehensively reviewed and streamlined the workflow in the first quarter of 2024. The time taken to handle the appeal has been compressed to 4 months. As at the end of 2024, 675 appeal cases were still pending, the lowest in the recent 10 years. We will keep a close watch on the trend of the number of appeal cases and continue to reduce the time taken to clear backlog of cases. Members suggested designating a court or a tribunal to handle judicial reviews in relation to non-refoulement claims. This will entail major changes to the judicial system of Hong Kong and amendments to the relevant ordinances. These changes may give rise to legal challenges and could not be solved in a short period of time. Even when introduced, changes may still fail to deter claimants from using judicial procedures as delaying tactics. Moreover, we need experienced judges and professional judicial officers to sit on a new designated court or tribunal. This will place pressure on the manpower of the judiciary and will also involve significant financial resources. It may not be more cost-effective than the current mechanism. The judiciary said, in consideration of the need to ensure the effective operation of all levels of court and where reasonably feasible, they had been implementing measures to expedite the handling of cases relating to non-refoulement claims. Measures include increasing manpower, streamlining court procedures, and promoting a wider adoption of paper disposals to deal with suitable cases. The judiciary will continue to closely monitor the progress of cases and flexibly deploy resources as necessary. The purpose is to enhance the efficiency in handling non-refoulement claim-related cases as far as practicable. This may be more cost-effective and flexible than setting up designated tribunals and courts. This is also better use of resources. Some members suggested that we should combat maintenance. Under the current mechanism, non-refoulement claimants cannot appoint in particular lawyers. Members suggested that the judiciary should speed up the processing of judicial reviews related to non-refoulement claims, improve the process of handling applications for leave to appeal for judicial review, and no longer allow the option of face-to-face hearings. According to the judiciary, at present, cases in the Court of First Instance CFI of the High Court may be heard either face-to-face or in writing. Based on the overriding principle of a fair hearing, the court allows a complainant to request a face-to-face hearing when filing an application for JR, and a final mode of hearing, however, will be decided by the judge concerned having regard to the circumstances. We understand members want to save the time of handling non-refoulement claim cases by streamlining court procedures. We understand that the judiciary has been implementing a host of measures to ensure the effective operation of all levels of court and, where reasonably feasible, expedite the handling of cases related to non-refoulement claims under reasonable and practicable circumstances. Measures including increasing manpower, streamlining court procedures, and promoting a wider adoption of paper disposals to deal with the suitable cases. As far as we understand, the judiciary has made special arrangements since February 2025. The judiciary appoints not only serving deputy judges of the CFI of the High Court, but also eligible legal professionals as deputy judges of the CFI of the High Court to handle cases in relation to non-refoulement cases. In the meantime, administrative procedures and the service of notice of judgments have been streamlined so that judges could speed up the handling of cases. In relation to detention As I mentioned, Castle Peak Bay Immigration Center, Tai Tam Gap Correctional Institution, and Neiku Correctional Institution, which has been expanded in situ recently, provide a total of 940 detention places. We will continue to make good use of these detention facilities by detaining claimants who pose a high risk to public security first. We understand the different suggestions and views in the community on detaining non-refoulement claims. Suggestions include detaining claimants who lodge a claim after a specified date in accordance with the immigration ordinance, canceling going-out passes, setting up a closed camp, and removing claimants to another place for detention and management. In considering various detention proposals and policies, the government needs to strike a careful balance between legal matters, use of resources, and security concerns. The government invokes the immigration ordinance to repatriate non-refoulement claimants. In doing so, we need to act in accordance with legal principles such as proportionality and reasonableness, as well as detention policies under relevant legislation and the common law. We also need to pay regard to the circumstances of each case, including whether the final determination of the claim can be obtained within a reasonable period of time, whether the person has committed a serious crime such that his non-detention is likely to pose a threat to the community or a security risk, and whether such a risk of the person absconding whether there is a risk of the person absconding, committing an offense, or reoffending. In other words, the Immigration Department still needs to adhere to the principle of Hardale Singh in the common law when invoking the immigration ordinance to detain non-refoulement claimants. It will not be immune from legal challenges. On measures for removing non-refoulement claimants out of Hong Kong for detention or management, complicated issues such as jurisdiction, the application of laws of Hong Kong in another place, and the responsibilities of governments are involved. We must consider these measures carefully. On repatriation, the updated removal policy was implemented in 2022. The Immigration Department could proceed with the removal of unsubstantiated claimants from Hong Kong upon dismissal of their JR or relevant leave applications pertaining to the non-refoulement claims by the CFI of the High Court, irrespective of whether there were outstanding court proceedings. The Immigration Department will continue to implement the updated repatriation policy and will maintain a close dialogue with the consulates of the main source countries of non-refoulement claimants in Hong Kong, so that the necessary travel documents for unsubstantiated claimants to return to their countries of origin can be obtained as soon as possible in order to facilitate removal. In 2024, the Immigration Department repatriated 2,219 non-refoulement claimants whose claims were unsubstantiated, about 68% more than the target of the year. That is no less than 1,320 claimants. Some members brought up the withdrawal from the Convention Against Torture. This convention has applied to Hong Kong since 1992. Under the Convention Against Torture, the Hong Kong Bill of Rights Ordinance, the Immigration Ordinance, and judgments of the Court of Final Appeal in relation to a few JRs, the government needs to discharge the relevant statutory obligations, including meeting the high standard of fairness before repatriating a claimant. Even if the government withdraws from the Convention Against Torture, it remains the statutory obligation of the government to screen non-refoulement claims in accordance with local laws and court judgments. This includes the discharge of the statutory obligations under the Hong Kong Bill of Rights Ordinance and the Immigration Ordinance. Therefore, the government does not have any plan to request the Central People's Government to declare that Hong Kong withdraws from the convention or make a reservation to certain provisions thereof. To ensure that handling of non-refoulement cases move with the times, we have been monitoring the developments in other jurisdictions. It came to our attention that an act was passed in the UK Parliament in July 2023. It provides that decisions on what is a reasonable period to detain a person is now up to the Home Secretary rather than the courts. This will make detention policies more flexible. The act, however, is now being challenged. The new term of the UK government has submitted a new act to repeal some of the provisions of the act of the previous term of the government. When drawing reference from the legislation in other jurisdictions, we need to review the post-implementation situation of the legislation, such as the effect and legality, so that we can formulate a policy suitable for our situation. We will continue to monitor these developments. Some members previously brought up the point of further room to cut expenses on humanitarian assistance. The government provides claimants with humanitarian assistance, including food, accommodation, and transport allowances, with the aim of preventing claimants from becoming destitute, while at the same time not creating a magnet effect which could have serious implications on the long-term sustainability of such assistance and the immigration control of Hong Kong. The government will closely monitor the implementation of the assistance scheme and will not tolerate any abuse of humanitarian assistance. President, while the government has been sparing no effort to address the problem of non-refoulement claims with a multi-pronged approach, in the past few years, we enhanced administrative measures, amended legislation, and took stringent law enforcement actions to improve the mechanism for handling non-refoulement claims. We are grateful to members for their valuable views on our work in this aspect. We will continue to keep tabs on the abuse of the mechanism to take swift actions, hence reducing the safety risks and heavy burden on Hong Kong brought by non-refoulement claimants stranded in Hong Kong. President, I so submit.
I now call upon Mr. CHAN Hak-kan to move an amendment. President, I move my amendment. I propose the question to you that Mr. CHAN Hak-kan's amendment be passed. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present. I declare the amendment passed. Dr. Hoey Simon Lee, as an amendment is passed, you may move your further amendment. President, I move my further amendment. I propose the question to you that Dr. Hoey Simon Lee's further amendment be passed. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present. I declare the amendment passed. Mr. Tang Ka-piu, as two amendments have been passed, you may move your further amendment. President, I move my further amendment. I propose the question to you that Mr. Tang Ka-piu's further amendment be passed. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present. I declare the amendment passed. Mr. LAI Tung-kwok, you still have 1 minute, 1 second to reply, then the debate will come to a close. President, we should curb the bogus refugees at source, and this is a long-term effort. So I thank the members for giving us many different points of views. There are often or always more solutions than problems. The views given by members are very clear. I hope that the Secretary can come back to the Legislative Council later on to tell us how they are going to solve this issue, but that are big, long-standing, and difficult. I now put the question to you that Mr. LAI Tung-kwok motions as amended by Mr. CHAN Hak-kan, Dr. Hoey Simon Lee, Mr. Tang Ka-piu be passed. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present. I declare the motion as amended passed. I now suspend the meeting until 9 a.m. tomorrow.